Thank you so very much. It is my honor now to introduce our special guest of the evening, and he really doesn't need an introduction. He truly is an icon in our community and in our country, an extraordinary actor, an extraordinary artist. He's a just lifelong advocate for the working people of America, and a man who cares so much. And well, you know him as a lawyer, Victor Cifuentes in LA Law. Everybody's favorite cop, Bobby Simone in NYPD Blue. Part of the Latino ensemble cast that brought us a three-generational Mexican-American family in the film My Family, Mi Familia, an inspiring Matt Santos, a Houston congressman who was elected the first Latino president of the United States in the acclaimed The West Wing. You know, he's been in Kane, so many programs, so many movies, so many shows. But more than that, he is a guy who has always remembered where he came from and what the important things of life really are, which is to be part of a community, to work for that community, and to always underline the positive aspects of the Latino experience in the United States. It is an honor to receive Jimmy Smits tonight.
Hello, familia! LULAC! Oh, my beautiful Latino people! Thank you, Jose. I'm really honored to be here with you tonight at the beginning of this wonderful week, this convention week for you. It's great with a special guest tonight. He is known for his passion and his service to this country. He is a lifelong advocate for working people of America. He was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and he later moved to Delaware, where at the age of 29 he became one of the youngest people ever elected to the United States Senate. And as a U.S. Senator from Delaware, he fought to enact the 1994 Crime Bill and the Violence Against Women Act. And it's because of that expertise that the President has asked him to take the lead in reforming how guns are bought and transferred in our nation, along with who can make these kinds of purchases. And not only is he a trusted friend and a partner of our community, but he is respected by world leaders across the globe, and that's because of his days as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So he has the chops. In his current role, he focuses on the issues that are important to us: college affordability, American manufacturing growth, the implementation of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. That means jobs. We care about that. This is part of his continued effort to raise the living standards of middle-class Americans and to build a strong United States economy. So I was involved in a little TV show called The West Wing, and if we could aspire to be half the public servant that this man has been, the man in the wings right now is an ally to our community. He has passion, he has drive, he has commitment to family, he has strength of faith and character, and he has courage to bring about the change that we want to see in our neighborhoods, in our states, in our country, in the world around us. He's not an average Joe, right? He has proven time and time again to be a man of the people, to be a fighter for issues, especially issues that relate to us, relate to the Hispanic community. So we need to get up and give him a big round of applause. And now the voice of God. Well, then I'll say it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, Joseph Biden. Woo!
Okay. Thank you. Whoa, I'm tall. Good evening. On behalf of the LULAC National Board of Directors, over 900 local LULAC councils, and our wonderful members and partners, it is my great honor to welcome Vice President Joe Biden to the 84th Annual LULAC National Convention. In recognition of your outstanding support of the Latino community and in appreciation of your tremendous service to our country, I am very pleased to present you with this LULAC Shield in honor of your appearance here tonight.
Oh, that's very nice.
Can we take a photo with it? And then I'll take it down.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. Go check it.
I will. Go Spurs, go.
Please sit down. I'm going to think the president showed up. Thank you all so very, very much. And Margaret, thank you. You know, Margaret, you ever hear of a team called the San Antonio Spurs? I mean, well, you know, it's the second half, and they're playing that outfit for Miami. And if we don't see Margaret again tonight, please understand, she got a vice presidential order to go watch the game. She's from San Antonio, and I told her if I had a choice of watching the Spurs or listening to me, I'd be watching the Spurs. But Madam President, thank you very, very much. And to your Executive Director, Brent, thank you. And I met the National Youth President. Mr. President, where are you? Where are you? You out there? Can you stand up? Anyway, I don't like him because he's too good looking. He's 25 and good looking and impressive, and thank you, old buddy, for getting so deeply involved. You are the future. We need you badly. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing. And I told Jimmy, who I've known for a while, as we were backstage, now that he plays the role of Nero in that Anarchy outfit, I don't know if you ever saw that, I told him, please tell me if there's anything you don't want me to say. I won't say it because I don't want to screw around with you. If you ever see him in that role, he is an enforcer. I liked him better when he was a retired Supreme Court justice who went and practiced law. But it's great to be with Jimmy again, and I heard the introduction of Jimmy, and it is true. He's a guy who never, ever, ever forgets. He not only doesn't forget his community, he doesn't forget his friends, and a lot of us appreciate that a great deal. You know, I want to thank LULAC for inviting all of you for inviting me here tonight. I was thinking, we go way back. You have your 84th. I know I look old. I'm not here for all 84, but I was thinking that of this. I called Harry Reid. Whenever I go in another senator's state, Democrat or Republican, I always, as a matter of courtesy, call them and tell them I'm going into their state. And I told him I was coming to speak to the LULAC convention. And he reminded me, he said, Joe, the first time you came to speak for me, you spoke for me as a candidate in Las Vegas at a LULAC convention in 1973. And so I've been hanging out with you guys a long, long time. We've been friends and allies, and we've been through a lot of rough battles. For years, for 17 years, I was the chairman or ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, which an awful lot of the legislation that most affected the Hispanic community goes through. In '74, you and I fought hard to amend the Fair Labor Contract Registration Act to improve treatment of migrant workers. In '75, we worked together to extend and expand Voting Rights Act and to stop states from using English-only ballots. In 1986, when I was chair, together we passed the Immigration Reform and Control Act. In '94, I was chair of the committee. We highlighted the problems of domestic violence and passed the Domestic Violence Act with incredible help from LULAC. And just a few years ago, we fought side by side to confirm the first Hispanic justice of the Supreme Court of the United States of America, who, by the way, is a friend, and I had an opportunity to choose who I wished to swear me in the second time as Vice President of the United States, and Sonia, Madam Justice, was kind enough to do it. It was one of the highlights of my career. And I should mention we have a chance to confirm an exceptionally talented public servant as the new Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez. He's done heroic work. Tom's done heroic work as head of the Civil Rights Division, and he deserves fair treatment from the United States Senate. So I hope you'll continue to do what you've always done and push hard to see that he gets a hearing and that he gets a vote. You know, we've been in many fights before, but quite frankly, folks, this is the fight of our lives, the most important fight of our lives. A lot hangs in the balance for the Hispanic community, Latino community, and for the country. It's long past time that we provide a firm but fair, unfettered path to citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants in our midst. And I might add, they are not all Hispanic. Predominantly, but they are not all. There are Asians, there are Irishmen, there are Africans. They're all over the world. I believe the American people are with us. I believed it from the beginning. They know that immigration has been the constant lifeblood of this country. It's the thing that it makes us the most unique nation in the world. It's not merely our Constitution. It's the constant regeneration and energy and new blood and culture and determination that waves of immigration have always provided to the United States. You know as well as I do, the Hispanic community is helping to determine the future of America. This is your time. This is the time. This is the time. Every new wave of immigration has been met with hostility by some of the xenophobic forces in this country. But America has been graced by the contributions of each wave and enriched our economy and our culture, and the country is ultimately embraced. America is young, innovative, stunningly successful because of immigration. The students represented, representing the schools and communities that are the overreaching and overarching reason why we need immigration reform. I'm told there's over 220 young leaders here tonight. They represent the families like those that have gone before them that have enriched and molded American ideals and ideas. They've had their confidence built up. You've instilled LULAC, leaders starting 84 years ago, who stood up, refused to remain silent, demonstrated that you stand up and make your case. The world and the nation has to listen. You've emboldened a whole new generation with confidence. For decades, you've been unafraid to claim for the Hispanic community the rights that every single solitary citizen is entitled to. Your confidence, the confidence of you, the older members of LULAC, the confidence that you have has been transmitted to them just by the force of your example. And they're, in turn, the new fulcrum of what will shape this country for generations to come. And that's not hyperbole. Think about this for a second. The Hispanic, the Latino community represents 17% of every student on a college campus is Hispanic. 17%. 25% of all students from K through 12 are Hispanic. 25%. 11% of every man and woman who wears the uniform of the United States and defends us is Hispanic. One of my great honors, I was given the responsibility to end the war in Iraq, as we promised in our campaign, by the President of the United States. And in July 4th, 3 years ago, I had the honor with my wife, who I believe is, if not the only, one of only two first or second ladies that ever flown into a war zone, to go into Baghdad to swear in on July the 4th over 165 soldiers, sailors, and Marines in one of Saddam Hussein's god-awful palaces, gaudy palaces. Many of them had already been wounded. Many of them had already received the Purple Heart. Many of them had received Bronze Stars and Silver Stars. Many of them, but none of them were citizens. And among them were probably 85 Hispanic Americans who fought and bled for their country before they could even be citizens, given everything they had. It was truly one of the great honors of my life to stand there and swear them in and shake each and every one of their hands. And every single one of them said they'd do it again. There's so much to be proud of. You know, the young people you honor tonight and have in your midst and are nurturing, those 25% of the student body from K through 12, these children are not just your children. They're our children. They're America's children. They are the kite strings that lift our national ambitions aloft. And immigration reform is the wind that will carry their hopes and aspirations of this entire country. Think about it. 25% of all the children in school. And we're arguing about immigration reform? The question before us is no longer, what can immigration reform do for the Hispanic community? The question you should be asking unapologetically is the same one I ask. The question is, what will immigration reform do for America? That's the question. And the answer is clear and resounding. It can and will do a great deal for America. Do not listen to the naysayers. When we pass this immigration bill, it will significantly improve our economy. All this stuff you heard the last 6 months about the astronomical cost of immigration reform, it's a bunch of malarkey. That's a Spanish word. That's Irish. That means it ain't true. The Congressional Budget Office last week released an analysis of the bipartisan Senate bill. And remember, the Congressional Budget Office is the gold standard which every Republican and Democrat says we should hew to. The Congressional Budget Office showed that the reform will save money and boost the economy. Here's what they said. They said the reform will reduce the deficit by $197 billion over the next 10 years. Almost $900 billion, almost $1 trillion over the next 20 years. Reduce the deficit. It will increase the gross domestic product, the GDP, by 3.3% over the next 10 years and 5.4% over the next 20. That's huge. And all this debate about Social Security and who's entitled to it, and these mean-spirited amendments that are on the Senate talking about even though if you've been undocumented working, paying into Social Security for 10 or 12 years, if you move on to the path of citizenship, if this bill passes, then you are not entitled to credit for what you've done. What a mean-spirited notion. Here's what they said. The bill will add $200 billion to the Social Security Trust Fund over the next 10 years and improve the solvency. Not degrade, improve the solvency of the Social Security system. I'm sick and tired of being defensive. I'm sick and tired of us acting like we have to apologize for doing the right thing. But common sense reform won't just benefit us here at home economically. Beyond it being the morally right thing to do, immigration reform will have a profound impact on America's foreign policy, particularly in the Western Hemisphere. The President asked me to take on an assignment of trying to change the attitude in the hemisphere. So I've traveled extensively just since this last election, from Mexico to Brazil. I met with all the CARICOM country leaders. I've met in Colombia. I've met with all the leaders in the Isthmus. I've met with a significant majority of the presidents and chief executives of every one of those countries. Something's changed. You can see it in their eyes. Without fail, every one of the presidents or prime ministers with whom I've met since January has said, "You're really going to do immigration reform?" I said, "Yeah, we are." What people don't understand is when we do this reform, it will communicate the single most important message that can be communicated in foreign policy. That's something that's been missing from our engagement with Latin America for centuries. Respect. Respect. My grandpa Finnegan, who wasn't crazy about England, you think I'm joking, I'm not. Long line of Republicans, not Republicans in America, but the Republic of Ireland. My grandpop used to talk about how one of the reasons why he didn't think Britain respected America was because there were so many Irish Americans, and it was obvious by the way they treated the Irish at home, they didn't respect anyone who was Irish. I don't have to tell you. These leaders, no matter how well educated they've been, whether they've been to Harvard or the Sorbonne, or they've been to the great universities in Europe, when they see a nation looking down their nose at tens of millions of hard-working people because they are Hispanic or Latino, they ask themselves the question, can you really respect me if you don't respect the community? Respect is a powerful asset in the American arsenal, and I've seen it firsthand. Leaders with whom I met in every one of these countries asked me repeatedly about immigration. And you could see the sense of pride they had, thinking that we will finally demonstrate our respect. That act speaks louder to them about who we are than anything else we can say. This is like every other wave of immigration in the last 3 centuries. Every single wave of immigration in the last 3 centuries has been met with hostility by a small minority. Every one. The single most defining feature of who we are as a country, why we remain young, why we continue to grow, why we evolve, why we prosper, are those new waves of immigration. But every single one heard exactly what you've heard, your grandparents and parents have heard, and so many undocumented continue to hear. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're from. There's an element in America that always wants to close the door behind them. Going back to the 19th century, there's an entire anti-immigration movement in the late 1800s. It became known as the Know Nothing Party. It was actually a party, and it was organized because the blood of Americans was being spoiled by too many Catholics, too many Irishmen, too many Poles, too many Italians coming to the United States. What many of you don't know is the Ku Klux Klan's first target wasn't African Americans originally. It was an anti-Catholic party. It was an anti-immigrant party. We've always overcome those xenophobic forces. It's always been a struggle. And you and LULAC, you are the ones who least need to be reminded that we can overcome anything if we just continue at it. You've never given up. You've never given up in any endeavor you fought for. We need to remind ourselves. Again, I say it again, the American people are with us. The vast majority of the American people are good, decent, honorable people. Just look at the response to the President's announcement on deferred action for Dreamers. It warmed my heart, and I'm sure it did you, on those first day after eligibility was announced to apply for deferred action. Thousands of Dreamers lined up, shoulder to shoulder, block after block. At 7 a.m. in Chicago, they counted 2,200 Dreamers standing in line at 7 a.m. By 1 p.m. in the afternoon, 13,000. 13,000 stood shoulder to shoulder, basically saying, just give me a chance. Just give me a chance. But you know what made me the proudest? And I won a bunch of bets. I made the bet when this action was taken, it would be immediately embraced by the American people. Not the Hispanic community, by all of America. Within 4 days after the President's decision, polls showed that 2/3 of the American people strongly supported the action he has taken. It's time to bring this debate to a close for overwhelming practical as well as moral reasons. We've got to pass this legislation. But those of you who are football fans know the last 10 yards are the hardest yards, are a hell of a lot harder than the first 90. We're on the 10-yard line, maybe the 5. And a lot can go wrong between now and the 4th of July recess. This morning, before I left Washington, I had the pleasure of speaking to the Esperanza Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. And Pastor Becky Kenner preceded me in prayer. And in her prayer she said, "Dear Lord, so many people are crying in silence." She went on to ask, do something to still their tears. Too many people are crying in silence today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the fight of our lives. We have to succeed. And when we do, I promise you, we will have a transformative impact on this nation's future. And those tears will be replaced by hope. There's a Mexican expression, hope dies last. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what's this country about? It's about promise. It's always about the promise of the future, hope. It's about possibilities. And so many people are just waiting to come out of the shadows and be embraced, just given a chance to be treated like every other decent American. So folks, that's who we are. That's what we're about as a country. And that's the journey we must complete this summer. The future of this country depends on it. So please, double your efforts. We will win this fight. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, folks.